to this land of ours and fill a sportsman's dreams. Enjoy what nature holds for us, her bounty never ends. Getting back to basics with the practical sportsman. It's always an adventure, no matter where we go. From a favorite hunting spot to the hottest fishing pole. Outdoor life we all can share with family and friends. We'll do it all together with a practical sportsman. We'll do it all together with a practical sportsman.
Hello, sportsman. Do you ever go by a lake and look out there and say to yourself, man, I wish I could just fish for a living? Well, some people do. They tend to be tournament fishermen. They can be kind of a high-strung group because they're so competitive. They crank their fish in fast. They do everything fast. But I met one bass pro who was very laid back. He taught me a lot, and I think you'll enjoy him too. Stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. We're going fishing with Art Ferguson, a guy who catches bass for a living.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Largemouth and smallmouth bass are just two of over 50 species of fish that anglers can catch to receive a Master Angler Award in Michigan. I mean, we have lots of water in this state. The Great Lakes, inland lakes, rivers, and streams, which is why we have so many species of fish. In the southern states, bass fishing is king. While bass fishing doesn't dominate in Michigan like it does elsewhere, Michigan does have some pretty spectacular trophy bass. Art Ferguson is a native Michiganian who now lives in Livonia during the summer, but you'll usually find him on Lake St. Clair or Lake Erie fishing for smallmouth bass. In the winter, he fishes tournaments and guides from Roland Martin's Marina in Florida. Now, Art Ferguson is what you'd call a professional bass fisherman. I spent the better part of a day with him one rainy day in mid-June. We caught quite a few bass on this small private lake, but I also got a chance to pick Art's brain and find out what goes on in the head of a professional fisherman.
Fred, I've never been on this lake before, and a lot of people, I get asked that a lot of how do you fish a strange lake. I mean, there's a few simple things you can do that really help out a lot. First one is, this is a private lake, so we don't have a topographical map of it, but if you can go to a local tackle store and find the contoured map of the lake, that always helps a real lot once you get an understanding what bass do during certain times of the year.
Must be.
Yeah.
Well, like at this time of year, what would you look for? The deep holes?
Well, like I said, trying to find that outside grass edges where these females should be holding.
Yeah, but the contour mapping can tell you where the grass is.
No, but a lake's going to be basically, especially around these counties around here, most of our inland lakes are shallow, grassy, lakes. Basically set up a lot of them, there's a couple different kinds, either shallow, very slow sloping breaks and a lot of grass, or they're real deep, a lot of sand, smallmouth in them. Like over in Oakland County, we've got a few lakes like Cass Lake or Orchard Lake like that. But what I was going to get at is the best spot to start bass fishing in a strange lake is on points. Points are, if you got a straight bank for 1,000 feet and all of a sudden there's a little point coming off, that's going to be something different for a bass, and that's what bass look for. Is bass are always holding on something a little different.
And you always find fishermen in the coves. They're always stuck up in the coves.
Coves can be good. This time of year, a lot of fishermen want to fish the shoreline on an inland lake like this. And really, these fish, especially right now, starting from now until, all through summer, these fish are going to go out on those deeper grass edges. And these fish will move off. They've spawned in these little bays and stuff like this. And now they're going to move off in the middle of these coves and start heading out towards the main lake more. Anywhere a little deeper water can be nearby. Any good points are real good spots this time of year.
But
not necessarily the land, though, Fishermen need to learn how to stay away from the shorelines more. Even though there's a lot of good fishing up there, there's a lot better fishing out in the main lake on just about any body of water I've ever been on.
So this little cove that's so attractive in the spring
Right.
and still attractive in the summer to fishermen. We should learn to fish the deeper water.
Yep. No, right out in this kind of lake, this is a real weedy, typical inland lake around this part of the state. A lot of shallow grass going off into the drop-offs. And as you see on this graph, we're about at the deepest part of the lake right here. It's about 14 feet deep. Most of the rest of this lake's about 5 feet. And see how there's not any grass showing on here? Grass would stick up, you'd see little ridges showing some fish coming across here, suspended. There's not much grass. What I'm looking for out here, especially with Fred with that worm, is some real scattered grass beds. Not the real thick stuff. Out on this deeper water, I look for where it just starts getting to where there's hardly any grass left. And especially in the summertime, that's a real good pattern to find. Real sparse outside grass edges. The fish will move through that grass and feed a lot easier than they can in the thick grass. As far as feeding purposes, they might live and hold in the thick grass, but when they feed, they'll get out on that scattered grass.
No, we had rain just this morning, basically.
Right.
For maybe an hour or so. Wind's blowing from the west. So what does this mean? Does this make the fishing better?
It seems to be.
Oh, yeah. That's a better one, isn't it?
A little bit better. Doing a little dancing. I haven't seen a real big fish yet, but I guess they're supposed to be in here. The weather, I think it should make fishing better right now. You know, any kind of change in weather, just like change in the contour of the lake. Anything to change helps fishing.
It helps.
Helps bass fishing.
Oh, bass. Okay, because there's a lot of types of fishing that when you get a change in the weather, especially the wind blowing from the east. Have you heard wind from the east, fish bite the least?
I've heard that, and I don't believe that one.
You don't believe that?
No, that's one.
That follows me then. That's why it doesn't bother you.
That's actually there's 2 or 3 bodies of water I fish down in Florida. I fish on Lake Okeechobee, and wind out of the east is one of my favorite winds. And Lake St. Clair, certain times of the year, east wind's one of my favorite winds. So I don't let that bother me. Fortunately, the fish taught me not to let that bother me, or else I'd be believing it like everybody else.
Now, what about time of day?
Well, your summertime, a lot of times, obviously the early morning and late evening is going to be the best with the low light conditions, but I've had some of my best days right 11 to 2, you know, especially tournament fishing.
With sunshine?
Yeah. What that does is that for bass fishing, again, with bright sunshine, it puts bass tighter to cover. And so if you're fishing tight cover, docks or weed edges, you know, anything that the fish are trying to hide under for the sunlight, it's going to put them tighter, so it actually makes them easier to catch sometimes. Early morning or cloud conditions like this, we're catching them kind of scattered everywhere right now. They don't seem to be like right along the grass edge or right on the thick of it. They're a lot more scattered right now with this cloud cover.
Now, you spend your summers now in Florida.
Winters in Florida.
Winters in Florida. Lake Okeechobee?
Right.
With Roland Martin's
Right, out of his marina.
outfit?
And I spend the summers up here. People ask me why don't I stay in Florida year-round. Well, it's hard to pass up Michigan fishing. I mean, I think it's the best in the country.
Yeah, but the size of our bass don't match those Florida bass.
The average size of our bass are bigger
Oh, yeah?
than most states, yeah. Especially the smallmouth in this state, which is, oh, a crappie.
A crappie.
We've caught
Whoa.
a little bit of everything today.
Yeah. Now, that's a pretty big lure. This crappie had some eating in mind when he took this. Well, since we're not pan fishing here, I'm tempted, but back he goes.
Now, Michigan's bass average right up there with any other state that I know.
But don't you fish Lake St. Clair mostly?
Yeah, I do most of my guiding on Lake St. Clair. Do a little bit on Lake Erie and a little bit on Saginaw Bay. And 90% of it's for smallmouth. And a smallmouth bass in Michigan averages as good as anywhere in the country. And actually in tournaments, our smallmouth average better than most largemouth states. So if that fish makes it on film, I'm in trouble. I'll never live it down.
What? That is a very small one. But there's a lot of small ones in here. I can see them right over the edge.
Yeah.
This little worm.
Yeah, this lake we're on is definitely a little overstocked with bass.
Now, Art, we just got this out of the fish, and the worm is cut and mangled.
Right.
And the tail is almost split right off. Can I use this again?
That's getting to the point of absolutely not. You've caught quite a few fish on that, and I think you've had a few bluegill pecking on that too, and it's just eating that worm up. So we'll get you a fresh one.
Okay, so the fresh one. How much does this cost?
They're getting more expensive every day.
Well, yeah, I hate to be cheap, but so what do they cost for a
pack of worms?
Yeah.
These days, probably this particular one's a Berkeley Power worm. Probably $3 for a pack of 10 of them or so.
10 of them, so 30 cents a piece.
Yeah. So.
Well, this is the first worm I've mangled. Actually, with night crawlers, you'd be more expensive. So you slide it through the top of it for about an inch.
Right. Half an inch or so.
Half an inch.
Bury that hook.
Now, what about the screw-in thing you're talking
about?
about?
This is a new idea in the last few years. It's actually, instead of putting a toothpick in there to hold the weight in place, we're just going to screw that right in.
Also, it has a spring in it.
Right.
There's some of the old worm there. Right. And you screw that right in. Is that head designed to be screwed into like that?
Yep. Now that's going to hold that weight, so now that worm will go wherever that weight goes.
Huh. Well, you gotta like that. Yeah. Another 30 cents, and here we go. But who's counting?
That's right.
So when did you start fishing tournaments?
Back when I was 16. It's my 17th year of tournament fishing.
Wow.
More than half my life.
And how have you done? You're sticking
fairly well. Yeah, I'm making a living at it, so I guess I'm doing all right. That's what counts.
Are you making a living off the tournaments or off of guiding?
Both. Between tournaments, guiding, and great people that help me support me.
The sponsors?
Yeah, I'm doing all right.
Huh. Now, what's the biggest tournament you've won? Or what's the biggest prize you've won? That's what I mean.
Well, probably about $18,000.
Cash?
No, it's actually a boat.
But you've won, Dwight was telling me you've won several boats.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough, me and my fishing partner at Dietrich, we've won 3 boats together in the last 4 years.
What is this boat worth? I mean, you guys spend a lot of money on your boats, you Bass Pros.
Right.
Like how much?
Well, fortunately...
I know, if you had to buy it.
Yeah. This rig is probably $25,000 to $30,000.
Whoa. What about if you bought it stripped down cheap and then you were going to add to it later? Like how much is in the accessories?
There's probably 500 to 1,500 in accessories.
Oh, so it's mainly for the boat?
Yeah, boat, motor, trailer.
Oh.
Well worth it though.
We're going to call up that 800 number on the show from what I've seen on Saturday morning fishing shows and that infomercial on banjo minnow.
Yeah.
Now, is that going to revolutionize my fishing? It says it makes fish bite.
It must then if they say that. They can't lie, can they?
How come we're not using it now? How come you bass guys don't all use it?
Actually, this lure right here is very, very similar to the one I was just using.
Very similar to the banjo?
Yeah. I'm sure it doesn't have the tricks that has, but that's your standard jerk worm, we call it.
Huh.
And it darts around like a minnow. and a lot of times it's a very, very effective bait. So
there is something to the banjo minnow mystique.
must be.
Okay, what about the flying lure?
It's a good minnow imitation bait. I don't know too much about it.
All the guys on the bass circuit don't use it though?
I can't comment on that. I don't know.
See, because the infomercials are very persuasive. Those of us sitting on the couch at Saturday morning,
Right.
7:30. Sometimes you get up early, 5:30, there is banjo minnow. Sometimes you go to bed late, 2 a.m., banjo minnow,
Right.
flying lure.
Right.
They must be selling.
It's the best I can figure.
So why is it that the bass folk, the serious bass fishermen, don't use live bait?
Well, first of all, it's not allowed in tournaments. Just it's more sporty to use artificial lures. But I just don't. I don't know. I just don't like it. It's not my style. There's two different. You know, it's just like people ask me all the time since I'm from Michigan. How are the salmon biting or the perch or something like that? I have no idea. You know,
right?
I'm a bass fisherman by trade. You know what I mean? So I can tell you how the bass are biting, but I can't tell you how or when to catch a walleye.
Well, how did you get into bass fishing so heavy in Michigan?
I don't know. Just as a kid, I caught one when I was probably 10 or 11 years old, about a 4-pound bass, and just fell in love with it. Just absolutely gave up everything else. Didn't interest me to go catch a bluegill anymore as a kid. Didn't interest me to catch a pike. I mean, I love catching them, but it's, you know, when a bass hits, that excites me. Anything else is just a fish.
So when did you start?
Anything else is just a fish? Well, that's Art Ferguson's perspective on bass. He fishes year-round for largemouth and smallmouth bass. He guides, he competes in tournaments, and he loves his job. He's a professional fisherman. He's living a dream. Well, except for when he caught this one.
If that fish makes it on film, I'm in trouble. I'll never live it down.
What?
Oh, I know what went wrong, Art. You should have been using a banjo minnow.
It must then, if they say that.
I thought fishing with Art Ferguson was great. But you know, tournament fishermen have to be serious. They got to move quickly because their livelihoods on the circuit depend on how many fish they put in the boat. Now, some tournament fishermen I've known have gotten pretty keyed up when they fish. I mean, to the point where, to my way of thinking, fishing with them just wasn't that much fun. It's just too serious. But I guess it all depends on what you want out of fishing. Is it something you do because it's a challenge so you can reach a goal? Or is it something you do to get away from the pressure of trying to reach goals all the time? Well, you may have heard that the DNR did not pass that special deer management unit where they were going to try to grow trophy deer racks by restricting the buck harvest. Well, this whole trophy deer thing gets to be really competitive. Now, I enjoy looking at big bucks, just like everybody does, but I really don't feel compelled to go out there and work to get one myself. I mean, I'm glad the DNR didn't get into trophy deer management. Trophy hunters can find lots of huge racks in southern Michigan. Me, I hunt and fish to relax. Of course, that's probably one reason that I have to usually buy my turkey meat at the grocery store. If you did not get a wild turkey this year, go to the store. Buy 2/3 of a pound of smoked turkey breast and do what Lucy Banker from Waterford does. She makes smoked turkey roulades. The filling is made from cream cheese, chutney, which you can find in the specialty section, and curry powder. Blend that in a food processor with a little salt and pepper until it's smooth. Spread this filling over a big 15-inch flour tortilla. Now, on one end of the tortilla, lay out some red leaf lettuce, some sliced turkey, thinly sliced cucumbers and tomatoes, and alfalfa sprouts. Now, I know this is beginning to sound like rabbit food, but as an appetizer, it is really good. Now, just roll up these stuffed tortillas, wrap tightly with plastic wrap, and refrigerate. Now, when they're chilled, slice them diagonally into 1-inch slices, serve on a platter. Now, I can't tell you how many this serves because I can eat so many myself. Lucy Banker's Smoked Turkey Roulades is in the Outdoor Digest magazine, and you can find it on our website under Fish and Game Recipes. Now, I know this show isn't going to be seen by nearly as many viewers as watch us in the winter, but you know, when the weather gets warm, the days get long, sportsmen get outside. They don't want to be sitting around watching TV indoors, but I'll still be here encouraging you to get outdoors because it is a great place to be. See you next week. How you doing, Cameron?
Good.
How old are you?
8.
How old were you when you caught this fish?
8.
Were you 8?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, your birthday must be coming up then.
Yeah.
When is it?
July 3rd.
Okay, and you caught this on the 13th, right after you turned 8. You were fishing up in Iron County. You're from Lincoln, right?
Yeah.
And you were using a worm. Who took you fishing?
My dad.
And, I mean, this bluegill is something else. This is almost a foot long. Well, I'd work with that, though, measure that. I get another 1/8 of an inch, you got a 12-inch one. But, I mean, for a bluegill, that is huge. It weighed 1 pound, 5 ounces. And you caught that all by yourself?
Yeah.
Did you catch a lot of bluegill that day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because we found a lost,
Hot spot?
yeah, good hot spot where there was pretty good sized bluegill. Like all of them were close to 10 inches.
Wow. Well, it's amazing that Iron County up in the UP does produce some big bluegill. There's been other big bluegill that come out of that area, but I don't know if there's been any that have been this big. Well, that's a terrific fish, Cameron. Way to go on that, and thanks for coming down and telling your story. Congratulations.